Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. Y bienvenidos también al canal anarquista Gaviota Brava, donde... este segmento en todo caso lo voy a estar... Momento. Este segmento lo voy a hacer en castellano, porque, se trata de una vista previa del podcast en que estoy trabajando, que narra la historia del golpismo y del gobierno de la Unidad Popular en Chile a través de la óptica del archivo histórico de la revista Punto Final y también de la documentación desclasificada de Estados Unidos. Así que, y el podcast está en castellano, así que, voy a presentarles una vista previa del primer capítulo que empieza en enero de 1969. Bienvenidos al primer capítulo del podcast El Primer Borrador, que examina el golpismo y la reacción en Chile en los años 60 y 70 y sus íntimas relaciones con el imperialismo estadounidense a través del archivo histórico de la revista Punto Final. Yo soy Elisa, del canal anarquista Gaviota Brava. En este primer capítulo arrancaremos viendo dos artículos de la edición número 72 del PF del enero de 1969. Policía política aguza la inteligencia. Fraude aduanero entona la caja electoral DC. Chat. Como siempre, los enlaces para los artículos y documentos que se van a comentar se encuentran en la descripción del capítulo. This is for people just joining in, para quienes se unen. This is just a little taster of the first episode of the podcast that I'm working on. En septiembre de 1965 se estrena una nueva revista de la izquierda revolucionaria chilena, la revista Punto Final, un folleto que aparecerá 2 veces al mes y divulgará reportajes sobre asuntos que inquieten a la opinión pública. Con su jefe de redacción, Manuel Cabiese Donoso, el PF llegaría a publicar 192 ediciones entre aquel día del invierno del 65 y su clausura, el día 11 de septiembre de 1973. En esta primera edición, el PF, que tras la partida de Pinochet volvió a publicarse durante los primeros 28 años de la asintótica transición a la democracia, le presenta al público lector un documento exclusivo, un reportaje exclusivo del periodista y escritor Miguel Torre sobre la tragedia del remolcador de alta mar Janequeo. Okay. So that is one of the things that I've been working on. It's long, and there's been a lot of research involved because I've been going into like declassified documents to correlate stuff with these articles. And it's essentially all about how a lot of the things that we like to think of as having been some big secret, some big reveal decades later about like the CIA's involvement in Chile, were actually fairly well known and extensively discussed, and how actually Punto Final, which I have to say is probably one of the best leftist news outlets that I know of. It's really a shame that they went out of print in I think 2018. They got a lot of things right. They actually really had their fingers on the pulse of it. And it's in Spanish first, but I'm going to be doing an English version of it. That involves way more translating, so that takes longer, and plus I figure if I do it in a Spanish version as first, then comrades in Chile in particular will have comments that will actually end up making it better. Making the English edition better.
And now, let's just get over to the JabroniCon. And I saw this and I just feel like we have to look at it. Why does anyone listen to Skippy the Bear, which for some reason is what Caleb Muppet, the Nazgul ghoul, everybody's favorite Nazgul ghoul, calls Thought Slime. And I mean, he's always at his most just fucking buck wild when he's having to go with Thought Slime, so I feel like that'll probably be pretty good. Yes. Okay. And let me know, chat, if I need to adjust the volume on the video.
So, folks, tonight I am...
Oh, he's starting out with a folks. And I can't help remembering whenever he says folks, what Chomsky once said about how when politicians start calling you folks, they're probably about to lie to you.
So, folks, tonight I am going to do what was suggested to me by my good friend and author, Peter Coffin. Now, Peter Coffin is the author of this great pamphlet, Marx for Sale, great documentary. He's done many great, very important documentaries. He's a member of the Center for Political Innovation.
Yeah, that has absolutely nothing to do with why Caleb Muppet decides that his stuff is so great. He would totally feel the same way about the quality of Peter Coffin's body of work if he were in fact a critic of the CPI. And not somebody who had stuck with him through all the ghoulish shit that he's been doing.
He's done great film work for our organization. We love Peter Coffin in many, many ways. He's just a dynamic,
I don't want to know the other ways.
And Peter Coffin suggested that I take a swing at Skippy the Bear.
Because, I mean, that's something that Caleb Muppet has never done. And, of course, it's always ended so well for him when he has a go with Thought Slime. It's always ended so well for him when he has a go with Thought Slime. So, I mean, this... You see why I'm excited to see this.
Folks, remember Skippy the Bear? It's been a long time since we've talked about Skippy the Bear. I nicknamed him Skippy the Bear. His
for reasons that are known only to Caleb, which is kind of like how his jokes generally work, which is why he has to tell you in advance that he's about to tell you a joke.
Internet moniker is Thought Slime. And he's a dumbass. There's really no other way to put it. He's a failed comedian. He tried to be a real comedian, and he wasn't funny.
As opposed to Caleb, I mean, Caleb just gets the yucks out of you. You just look at this guy and you know it's going to be hilarious. It's not going to be intentionally hilarious, mind you, but it is going to be a laugh riot nonetheless. Not that he condones rioting, folks, he doesn't condone rioting.
YouTube channel that did movie reviews for a while, and then, around the time they were trying to mobilize people to oppose Donald Trump and protect American imperialism from the threat of Donald Trump, some guy who's, kind of a loose cannon, is not going fully on board with them. They were mobilizing the left and wokeism.
Who's they? Who's they? I mean, he's just regurgitating unsubstantiated bullshit that he put in his book.
He got the gig.
It's really something, because it's been like over a year since that thing came out, and you'd think if he actually had anything to go on there, we would have heard it by now. Get anything to base this on.
He got the gig of suddenly being the king of internet socialism. Why? Because, he's a dumbass. I don't know. He's not connected to any revolutionary organization.
Oh, well, yeah. This is based on the fact that, Caleb, in his book, says he could not find any record of Thought Slime who's like, yeah, okay, he puts everybody else's last names up and their middle names too in this shitty book. He does not seem to have a last name for Thought Slime. So I mean, how he managed to to even convince himself that there were actually that there was no record of Thought Slime ever being involved with any revolutionary organization is a bit of a mystery. But yeah, I mean, because and after all, I mean, if there's one thing, anarchist, because I mean, Thought Slime is very specifically not a socialist; he's an anarcho-communist. Kind of says that quite openly, so it's kind of funny to hear Caleb get that particular thing wrong. It's not. I mean, I don't see why it's not even a lie that helps him particularly, because I mean, he'd be like slagging him off anyway, I suppose. Because I mean, I do. He's never had anything good to say about anarchists, after all. But for some reason, he does this.
He's never done any. He's never done any genuine revolutionary activism. He is pro-imperialist.
This is just non. I mean, he's just making this shit up.
To his core. He thinks socialism is an employee stock ownership program.
He keeps on saying this one. I still have not figured out what the hell he's talking about here. First of all, let's remember this motherfucker thinks socialism is like just a welfare state. He's been very specific about this. He thinks that socialism is just welfare state capitalism and it's like FDR. First of all, but this employee stock ownership thing, he keeps on bringing that up. And he keeps on attributing it specifically, sometimes it's just broadly to BreadTube. Because, I mean, if there's one thing that BreadTube does tons of videos on, it's in the importance of employee stock ownership programs. But then he sometimes will attribute it specifically to Thought Slime, which also doesn't make sense because I've watched pretty much every single thing that Thought Slime has done. Hello, Ludlow, good to see you. I've watched basically every single Thought Slime video, some of them many times because I just enjoy them. And I've never actually heard a single good thing about employee stock ownership programs, or even just the concept being mentioned.
And his fans are okay with that because he's pessimistic and he promotes degrowth and
which Caleb does not actually know the meaning of. I mean, it's just hilarious that you see, this is. I mean, Sophie from Mars described this as sort of a self-selection thing. Because because what Caleb wants is the people who will listen to him talking about degrowth and don't think, yeah, maybe Caleb should stop talking about degrowth because he embarrasses himself every single time he does. He wants the people who don't remember that or don't know enough about what degrowth is to know that he does not know what degrowth is.
Talks about, self-mutilation and suicide and child abuse and helps.
He's just regurgitating bullshit from his book. Yeah, because, I mean, if there's one thing that we all know, I mean, it's that Thought Slime's channel is such a downer.
Helps very depressed people fixate on their negative feelings. He's all around.
This is because Thought Slime did a couple of videos about his own struggles with mental health, which in fact a lot of people have said have helped them deal with their own struggles with mental health issues. Jesus, I mean, this is just the same shit that he says in. This is the exact same bullshit he says in the book. Like, literally, the only thing he's left out is the bit where he describes, describes Thought Slime as talking about, genitals and other things generally considered ugly, which was a moment that we learned a lot about Caleb Maupin.
A very disgusting human being. And the logo for his channel is a bunch of sludge, a bunch of disgusting slime. And that's what he wants you to feel. You go to his channel and you hear him do his comedy routines that involve putting other people down, insulting other people's appearance.
Which Caleb would never do. He would never put anyone down. Like, I mean, and insulting other people's appearance? That, I mean, maybe a couple of times, but not really a whole lot.
Burger King. Is telling people that there is no hope, and you walk out of all of his so-called comedy or entertainment feeling like you are dirt, like you are lower than slime. Like,
oh well, that's so interesting because I mean, if this is what he's actually describing, how he ends up feeling after watching a Thought Slime video, that says a lot about him, really.
you're garbage, right? And that's a particularly dangerous and irresponsible message.
The working class wants to get out of slime.
Because his videos are particularly aimed at transgender people, right? Transgender teenagers watching.
That's actually, this is also not true. I mean, if you actually look at his analytics, and at one point in response to the book, because this is just another claim he's regurgitating from the fucking book, all he's saying here is just some bullshit from the book. Actually, his core audience is, like, first of all, not overwhelmingly trans. And, but, I mean, I'm glad we're gonna hear Caleb Maupin explain what he thinks is good for trans people. I mean, it's so wonderful when cis people tell us what they think would be good for trans people. But that's also not true. His audience is like 30 to 40, actually.
His channel, the very people that commit suicide at high rates, that struggle with self-esteem, but he has no regard for his audience. He's simply a selfish person who, you know, has really no sense of social responsibility. So
oh well, I mean, this is so fascinating. Are we gonna get some like videos where we see some of this? Like, I mean, see, if I wanted to really just make a damning indictment of Thought Slime, and I believed that these accusations were true, I would show people some of the videos where he does the things. Like, because, like, when Thought Slime, for example, wants to have a go at Caleb Maupin, he shows Caleb Maupin videos, because that's really all you need to do.
So he promotes this pessimistic, you know, misanthropic, suicide comedy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you want to know just how completely this off the mark this is, if you go to Thought Slime's Twitter bio, he actually quotes this. Not this video, but the stuff that that Caleb's riffing on here from his book. Because, like, anyone who watches the fucking videos, which he clearly does not want people to watch the fucking videos, knows it just isn't true.
You know, to his audience, and he does this, and I mean, he's paid handsomely for it. They've boosted him in the algorithms, and he...
They actually, that's, I mean... First of all, no, I mean, the fact that he does better than Caleb Muppet does, you know, I mean... Which is just such a shock, actually, that Caleb Muppet, who just sort of, like, drones on and lies to people and just kind of makes personal insults, and doesn't even, like, he doesn't even show any interest in pop culture. We're gonna be... See, you have to, if you're gonna do this, you have to be a reactionary pop culture person, and then everything all is forgiven. But he's just reactionary with no culture. But Jesus
mixes his depressing suicide comedy with you know, synthetic left fake socialism, and I've always loathed the guy. And
well, I mean, maybe that's because he called you out for platforming a TERF. And then embarrassed you when you, like, first, because, I mean, first, for people who are, like, coming in and did not see the beginning of this, see, Caleb Muppet's first attempt to attack Thought Slime actually involved, responding to a video of his, a really good one called Fake Materialism for Real Bigots, or Real Transphobes, and... Thought Slime brings up the concept of overproduction, and for bringing up the concept of overproduction in capitalism, fucking Caleb Muppet calls him Malthusian. And then so yeah, and then now Caleb Muppet, every time he talks about, like, leftists, what he calls the synthetic left, which is, like, just leftists, he has to say, oh, they don't understand the problem of overproduction. It's like, you motherfucker, you don't understand the problem of overproduction.
Proof that this guy is clearly an agent of imperialism is the fact that of all the people to take aim at, right? I mean, he could criticize Alex Jones, he could criticize
which he does.
Richard Wolff, He could criticize anybody.
And he mostly criticizes other people.
He decided randomly to go after me.
Not randomly. He was making an argument about class reductionism and how it actually is just bogus materialism and is used to justify bigotry. And Caleb had on Jyoti Brar from the obscure reactionary splinter organization CPGBML, who was giving a perfect example of reactionary fake materialism. It wasn't even, I mean, he just kind of mentioned in passing that Caleb is a Nazgul Ghoul because he's a Nazgul Ghoul. But, I mean, and that probably would have been it, but Caleb decided to make the most, like, buck-wild, ridiculous attack video, and, I mean, it was just so hilarious that he's still pissed off about it.
Because I'm an RT reporter, because I work at RT and he hates Russia. And so
Which is why, I mean, that's another thing you see all over. I mean, that's why half of the videos, the thumbnails on ThoughtsLens channel, are just, like, fuck Russia videos. Like, that's just all he talks about is, fuck Russia, let's have degrowth and Malthusianism and stock options.
His channel that's huge. He's made multiple videos trying to claim that I am a white supremacist.
Actually, he's never used that word.
Trying to claim that I'm actually a neo-Nazi.
Actually, never actually said that. He said he's a Nazgul, and he literally is that thing.
He's used his big platform, and that has hurt my wife, who is an immigrant activist in New York City.
God, I mean, he just, like uses everybody as a fucking human shield. He's living off his wife right now.
That has hurt me, and we know his intent is he's hoping to get me killed, right? He hopes that...
That is so fucking wild. This is clearly for people who are never going to even look at the videos. I'm going to just drop the links just in case anybody in chat is unfamiliar to these videos. There we go. This is fake materialism for real transphobes. And Caleb Maupin destroys Bread Chew, which was a collab with Lance from the Syrup. Hang on. This will take a second. Here we go. Caleb has now destroyed us, we must resign, featuring the serfs. And also this one. Like, he's never called him a neo-Nazi. He's pointed out that he hangs out with neo-Nazis, which he does. He's called him, quite correctly, a Nazgul.
The right person, one of these crazed Antifa nuts, will see it and shoot me. And he's trying to psych up the population for acts of violence committed against me, hate crimes to be committed against my wife. That's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so when are we going to see the video evidence of him doing this? I mean, when are we going to have the video evidence? Because, I mean, like, literally, because, you know, what would be really kind of fucked up, what would literally be the exact thing that you're accusing him of, is if it turns out that you just had absolutely no basis at all for making these sorts of accusations, just so your reactionary fan base might go off and do something to him, you know, which is, like, I mean, seriously, this is fucked up.
Right? He wants to make it hard for my wife to be an immigrant activist. He wants to make it...
He's never mentioned his fucking wife.
Safe for me to walk the streets. You know, spreading that someone is a fascist or a white supremacist, regardless of the facts. If you use your huge...
What about spreading that somebody is a fucking CIA agent, regardless of the facts? Does that have... I mean, is there any precedent? You got all these books, Caleb. Is there possibly any precedent for maybe that being such a damaging accusation that U.S. intelligence services strategically deployed it against leftist groups? Could it, I mean, maybe it rhymes with COINTELPRO. Like,
huge platform with hundreds of thousands of subscribers to spread that, you're essentially putting a hit out on somebody. And that's what he's doing. And
yeah, see, by making fun of Caleb, which is what he actually does, that's clearly the same thing as putting out a hit. Whereas this, I mean, accusing him of being a CIA agent, accusing him of trying to get him whacked, I mean, there's no way, I mean, this is just performance art, obviously.
He can make fun of that and laugh it off all he wants, but that's what he's doing. And
oh, wow, somebody, okay, this'll be interesting. Somebody paid $10 in a super chat to this dickhead to actually see if he will actually say the name of Stop Cop City. Because every time he talks about police repression in the U.S., it's about the Nazis from January 6th. He's never said a damn thing about Cop City, no matter how fucked up that's gotten. And the repression has been just wild. I mean, it is stuff I've never seen before in this country. I mean, we've gone from, like, low-key criminalizing protest, where you just make bogus accusations, say protesters did things other than just protesting and use that to criminalize protest, to literally issuing an indictment that argues that just basic social movement stuff is a RICO conspiracy.
You're on the list, John. Very good. That's what he's doing. He's
we're
a
never
very
gonna hear this
vile
again.
person, and he has no sense of morality at all, and he absolutely doesn't know anything about socialism, in addition to not being funny. He doesn't know anything about...
I mean, let's see you be funny, Caleb. I mean, I know you have to book it in advance and announce it for like 20 minutes that you're about to tell a joke, but could you try being intentionally funny?
Communism or socialism. So, Peter Coffin suggested I react to his latest video.
Oh, this is going to be good. He's actually going to do a reaction video. This'll be better, because, I mean, so far he's just rehashing his bullshit book.
Which is titled, Abolish the Left.
Yes, and it is about the left. He's specifically talking about these reactionary dickheads, like, I mean, he specifically singles out the Young Turfs, who will make arguments about why the left should be more reactionary in order to win votes for the Democrats, in the case of the Young Turfs, or, you know, in order to attract reactionaries, because for some reason we can't do anything without attracting, you know, we have to attract reactionaries no matter how few of them there actually are, or we failed in something, like...
We'll get to that. But before we get to that, I have to show you a clip from a video that he made that should confirm everything I just said to you.
Oh, this should be interesting. It's going to confirm everything, so even the stuff about the mutilation, even the stuff about encouraging suicide, even the stuff about being a CIA agent. One clip is going to confirm all this. This is one hell of a clip, chat. I can't wait to see it. I wonder what it's going to be. Like, I've literally watched everything Thought Slime has basically ever done, except maybe some live streams that I've missed. Because it's just enjoyable, and it's actually comforting to have it in the background sometimes. You know, like when I'm having an ocular migraine and I have to just close my eyes and wait it out, I listen to the thing he did taking the piss out of reactionaries getting pissed off over He-Man, which is hilarious, and I highly recommend it. But, I mean... I can't even begin to think what clip he's gonna use for this. Chat, any guesses? What's your over-under? Hello, Raven G.
About this awful human being called Thought Slime. And this clip, he made a long video, PragerU,
CPI is better version of LaRoucheism and U.S. Marxism. Is that something that fucking Caleb's gonna own up to? I mean, that'd be interesting.
Thank you. Thank
you! There you go. I mean, that's him. Speaking of CIA, speaking of fascists, speaking of violence as well, and getting people killed, that's LaRouche all over. I mean, look up Jeremiah Duggan. Jewish anti-war activist, young, naive guy, who was not actually, involved in activism, goes to an anti-war march. This is back at the beginning of the Forever Wars. And ends up getting hooked up with some people from the so-called Schiller Institute, which is a LaRouche front. And they're going to tell the real background of the war. And he was interested because, young, naive guy doesn't know who's who, doesn't know what's what, doesn't know that there are these dodgy motherfuckers hanging around. Also, it's worth noting, Jewish. And so he goes, and it's an overnight thing to the LaRouche cult event. And it turns out it's all about, it's just straight up anti-Semitism. It's blaming everything on the Jews because that's kind of a big thing for the LaRouche people. I mean, that and the royal family. It's either the Jews or the royal family or somehow both. But in any case, what we know is that he was terrified. He made a couple of frantic phone calls to his mother from Germany. His mother's in Britain, saying, I'm scared of these people. I think they're going to kill me. I hope they don't find out I'm Jewish and things like that. And the next thing we know, he's found dead. And it was initially ruled a suicide in a really superficial investigation that was eventually redone. The inquiry, under a lot of pressure from his mother in particular, was redone, and they came to the conclusion, I don't know if they specifically said it was a homicide, but they no longer ruled it self-inflicted. Because there's all sorts of evidence. Meanwhile, the LaRouche people, LaRouche himself is so fucking dodgy that he, in the 80s, approached the CIA to set up a cooperative relationship, offering all the files that LaRouche kept on leftists in the U.S., which were extensive. And, we only have the CIA's word for this part, but they actually knocked him back, saying they found him unreliable and self-serving. That may be true, that may not be true. But, that's just sort of an interesting... But when somebody, associates him with LaRouche, and he himself is associated quite openly with LaRouche people, he just says, thanks. If somebody tried to suggest that I was connected with LaRouche, that I was in any way related, I would be offended. Any normal, non-reactionary, non-ghoul would be. But this motherfucker just says thanks.
And you're on the list. He made a video called PragerU Doesn't Understand Democracy.
Yes, taking the piss out of Dinesh D'Souza.
In which he tries to explain what socialism is.
No, he does not actually try to explain what socialism is. He tries to explain what socialism is not. But it isn't about what socialism is. It's making fun of some nonsense. He was trying... Dinesh D'Souza, white supremacist and just a general scumbag, did a video for PragerU saying that capitalism is actually more democratic because you can vote with your money if you have money. And Thoughtslime pointed out that didn't make any fucking sense. Because kind of the problem is that a lot of people don't have money.
He shows edits of a Dinesh D'Souza video opposing democratic socialism, social democracy, and then he tries to explain to PragerU, like he's some kind of expert on Marxism and socialism, that socialism is actually a worker cooperative employee stock ownership plan.
No, he doesn't. Okay. But this is the first time he's ever tried to offer a source for this claim, so I'm very curious.
It's not,
because I've seen this video, and I don't remember this bit.
It's not, central planning of the economy. It's not a Norwegian welfare state. No. Socialism is just when you and your friends get together and start a pencil factory. It never mentions the problem.
Are we going to see the fucking video? Show, don't tell, motherfucker.
Overproduction and the tendency of the falling rate of profit. He never mentions the irrationality of capitalism.
Because the video's not about that.
Poverty created by abundance. No, he thinks...
actually, the last time he mentioned the poverty created by abundance, Caleb called him a Malthusian for it.
The problem with capitalism is growth, and he thinks growth is bad. And on top of that, he thinks that, it's basically socialism. He reduces all of Marxism to some people own the factory, some people work in the factory, and that's not fair.
Oh, well, we're getting a lot. This clip is being talked up very heavily. I am looking forward to seeing, like, how this clip cashes the checks that his ass is writing.
That's not fair. It's no fair. And makes us look like a bunch of babies, which is why right-wingers laugh at us. He reduces socialism.
Well, no, everybody laughs at you, Caleb.
It's not fair, the relationship between employers and employees. It's no fair. And so socialism is when you create a worker co-op, so you get rid of that. But in the video...
You're like, okay, so you're going to show us a clip, Caleb. Did you forget that?
He reveals... He says this. Now, keep in mind, this video that this clip is from...
I didn't see his tweet because I have him blocked. Because he tried to put me on blast a while after I blocked him from trying to join in this chat and challenge me to debates randomly. What did he say?
It includes it has hundreds of thousands of views. I think it's probably over 500,000 people have watched this video.
That's not what a view means. Like, I mean, nobody really knows exactly what a view means except Google. And Google aren't telling because they don't want people to game the algorithm.
This guy is pumped by the algorithms to be the brilliant expert on Marxism.
It was something he never claims to be, incidentally.
If you want to know what Marxism is about, you should listen to this sarcastic comedian from Canada.
Oh, he's from Canada. Well, I mean, there you go.
And this is what he says in the video. He starts explaining that no. Socialism isn't when you have like a centrally planned economy and control the means of production.
Hey, take notes because he's apparently going to show us this clip. And let's just see exactly how many things that he would like. He's selling it really hard right now, and
raise people out of poverty. No. Socialism isn't that. And here is what he says. And this takes the cake.
Note how I would define democratic socialism. Democratic socialism is essentially what most people mean when they just say socialist without having some modifier like libertarian or Maoist or national, because socialism
Yeah, note here, this footnote here, including people who think socialism means higher taxes and more government like in the Nordic model. He's specifically specifically distancing himself from that, which is social democracy.
By definition, is democratic in the truest sense of the word. Under socialism, the means of production are socially controlled. In the case of democratic socialism, directly by the people rather than mediated through the state. Some democratic socialists might think that the state ought to exist, at least for a while. They're wrong. But they pointedly don't believe it should control production. They are in contrast to authoritarian socialists, who confusingly also believe, or at least claim to believe, that their system is democratic. Lenin called the centralization of control over the state and economy democratic centralism.
And now first of all, I mean that's not exactly what Lenin was talking about with democratic centralism. But what I'm waiting for the stock options.
I paused.
Okay, so let's take the.
He did. Let him finish the fucking sentence.
This apart. So first of all, he says that democratic socialism doesn't involve state control over the economy, and that Lenin had a theory that the state should control production.
Which, that's true. He certainly did believe the state should control production.
And it was called democratic centralism.
Okay, but you'd promised us stock options and CIA ties, Caleb. When are we going to get this? I was promised CIA ties.
As democratic. Lenin called the centralization of control over the state and economy democratic centralism.
Yeah, okay, and yeah, that's wrong. That's not what he meant by it. I mean, but that's this isn't what you'd promised us, Caleb.
Did you hear that? Lenin called the central control of the state over central control over the state and the economy democratic socialism.
No, that's not what he said. We just watched the video with us. How are you misquoting something you just heard? What he said, and yes, it's wrong, but what he said was that central planning of the economy is what Lenin called democratic centralism. When, my understanding of what democratic centralism is, it's not actually something I agree with. but my understanding is the idea is that there is democratic debate on issues within the party, and once a decision has been reached, then everybody just has to abide with it and can't speak against it until the issue has been, is being, like, officially revisited. I mean, so he's wrong about the definition of democratic centralism, but that's not what he was... Like, and now Caleb's misquoting something that is right in front of him. And it's actually, it's like, I mean, if you're trying to make people forget that you promised CIA ties and mutilation and stock options, you could have just focused on the fact that he got the definition of democratic centralism wrong, which I doubt he'd even actually disagree with you.
This is your expert. This is the smartest guy on the internet about Marxism.
Lenin called the centralization of control over the state and economy democratic centralism.
Yeah, not democratic socialism, motherfucker. Like, okay, yeah, you misquoted him.
What is democratic centralism, folks? What is democratic centralism?
When are we gonna get the stock options and the mutilation and the suicide encouragement or whatever you said he was gonna give us? I was promised those things, Caleb. I will not have you be forsworn.
You know, I hate Wikipedia.
Hey, Mask, how you doing? Yeah.
Wikipedia is very biased. Wikipedia is very contrary to what we want. But this is what Wikipedia says that democratic centralism is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he got the definition of democratic centralism wrong, but, I mean, this is not what Caleb told us we were going to be seeing. He didn't say, look, this dingus got misdefined democratic centralism, which wasn't even particularly central to his point. He said something about mutilation and CIA ties, and we're not getting any of that. And note, he's talking about socialism as well. He's an anarcho-communist. He's actually been fairly specific on what he wants. I mean, to the extent of saying that that it's a stateless, classless, moneyless society where everything is distributed based on need and everybody works according to ability and everything. Very fairly basic stuff. He's talked about it at some length. When he's talking about socialism, he is defining what other people say about it. And here, in order to be ecumenical, I guess, he was trying to give sort of the Marxist-Leninist approach to it as well, but he got democratic centralism wrong. He misdefined it, and he probably just fucking misspoke. Because he doesn't actually know how to position his camera.
Democratic centralism is the organization of principal socialist states and most communist parties. In practice, democratic centralism means that political decisions reached by voting processes are binding on all members. Democratic centralism was the method through which the Bolshevik Party made and carried out decisions. It has absolutely nothing to do with central planning of the economy.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's quite right either, though, because, I mean, democratic centralism certainly did apply to decisions related to the planning of the economy. But yeah, he got a definition wrong. He got one term wrong, but that wasn't what you promised us, Caleb.
It's a method Lenin invented in 1903 so that when the Bolshevik Party decided they were going to do something, and they voted that they were going to adopt a certain tactic or carry out an operation, they all did it. Even if you voted no, you were still obligated to carry it out. It has nothing to do with the state controlling the means of production. That's Marxism. And
then no, that's Lassalleism, actually. Marx specifically dismissed, Caleb's approach to this as well as Lassalleism. He said that this was like Lassallean idealism.
The fact that he does not know this, Marx never wanted Marx never wanted the means of production to be controlled by the state. Oh boy, that's just...
Yeah, where did he say that, actually?
Something Lenin made up. He called it democratic centralism.
That's not what he said. Like, we literally just, if you're gonna lie about the clip, then why show us the clip, Caleb? If you're gonna lie about the clip, you leave out the clip. Normally you don't show us clips. This time you're just like showing your audience that you're lying to them.
See, because it was like central and he claimed it was Democratic.
This is how we know that he really is a connoisseur of comedy, by the way. Because he was saying that that he's just not a very good comic, that Thought Slime isn't a very good comedian. And, I mean, now we're seeing, I mean, this guy is up there with, like, fucking Joe Piscopo and Gallagher in the pantheon of great comics.
But it wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, this guy's an idiot. He didn't even think to Google democratic centralism.
He probably fucking misspoke.
That in his video. People are learning. 500,000 people have watched this video.
And I bet, like, I would imagine quite a few comments also pointed out that, yeah, he got the definition of democratic centralism wrong, which wasn't actually particularly central to his point. He was just trying to give a broad gloss and say, yeah, PragerU's idea of what socialism is bullshit.
To learn what Marxism and socialism are, what democratic centralism is, from a guy who has absolutely no clue what this basic tenet of Leninist theory and how Leninist vanguard parties operate is, and thinks that, oh, well, Marx never wanted the state to control the means of production. Oh,
well,
Marx
I mean, he didn't say that. Like, seriously, why? I mean, why show the clip? Why show the clip repeatedly, in fact, when you're gonna lie about what's in the clip? I don't understand this. Like, that is higher production values than you ever see from a Caleb Muppet video. Like, that he actually brings a clip in and stuff. That, I mean... Well, why are you gonna have the clip and then lie about the clip?
never wanted that. Oh, boy. Oh, they never wanted that. That's just something Lenin made up called democratic centralism. That old Lenin dictator, buddy. Well, I'm sorry.
And why is he giving him the voice of, what is that, Gomer Pyle? Thought Slime does not sound like Gomer Pyle.
I'm not sorry, actually. I don't know why I say that.
Because it's a reflex and you're used to having to apologize for everything because you're an asshole.
When I get fired up, I always want to apologize. Maybe that's my humble small-town origin.
Fuck you. Oh, God, like fucking cult leader origin story material right here is humble small town origin. Yes, he was born in a mere hut in Mangyongdae.
This is from the Communist Manifesto. Is there any document that might be more accurate in summarizing what communists believe than the Communist Manifesto?
Yeah, probably. Because the Communist Manifesto was just... was not even something that Marx actually and Engels stood by within a few years of writing it. And they ended up continuing to write extensively for the rest of their lives after writing this thing. So I'm guessing that they felt that there was more to be said on it. I mean, like, for example, there's capital. Capital's kind of important. You never quote capital. Yes, yes, this is what he thinks comedy is. This is why he thinks that Thought Slime isn't good at comedy.
Written by Karl Marx? Well, there might be a few, but we'll start with the Communist Manifesto.
Literally the only fucking book by Marx he seems to know. And he never reads the foreword. Even his dickhead ex-disciple, the Wanky Tanky, has actually read the forewords and pointed out that actually Marx... No, that wasn't the Wanky Tanky. That was Haz, I think, who pointed out. I mean, even fucking Haz pointed out that the forwards actually point out that Marx and Engels did not actually stand by their initial proposals because the Paris Commune made them rethink them.
What does the Communist Manifesto say? This is from the Communist Manifesto.
Oh, okay, yeah, this is the exact passage that Marx and Engels in one of the forwards say, we would have written this entirely differently if we'd had the benefit of the experience of the Paris Commune at the time that we wrote it. Like, this is one of the sections they say, yeah, actually, we got this wrong.
We have seen that the first step in the revolution by the working class is to raise the proletariat to the position of the ruling class.
Like, this is literally the only Marx quote you ever get from Caleb. I mean, at any length anyway. He always comes back to this one. And it's such a bad example. Because, again, I mean, if your whole thing is, Marx said this, therefore it's true, which, no, I mean, that's not how that works. I mean, I don't even think Marx himself would probably agree with that. But, I mean, Marx actually, like, within just a few years of writing these words, he said, yeah, we got that one wrong.
To win the battle for democracy.
Something that Caleb never says. That's probably because Caleb never gets anything wrong. Unlike Marx.
The proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest, by degree, all capital from the bourgeoisie, to centralize all instruments of production into the hands of the state.
Yeah, see, that's because it's capital, so you have to pronounce it in that annoying sort of fly-in-your-ear sort of voice that he was doing there.
I.e., the proletariat organizes the ruling class, and to increase the total productivity of the forces as rapidly as possible.
Yeah, and this is another thing. I mean, he keeps on coming back to the idea that communism just comes when productivity reaches a certain level, which, because his idea is, to the extent that he has one, and I really think that is a limited extent indeed, is that you can just sort of look at what Marx and Engels, etc., were writing in the mid to late 19th century, at a time when the means of production were in a very different state than they are now, at a time when scarcity was a much bigger issue than it is now. And just sort of apply that without making any modifications to right now. Yeah, well, I don't know, accusing Thought Slime of being depressing and pessimistic, I have to say, I mean, that's original. It's not a good idea, but he's like literally the only person, like all the criticisms I've heard of Thought Slime, he's the only one who came up with that as a thing to criticize Thought Slime for.
Now, I wonder what Marx meant when he said centralize.
I wonder what Marx said a few years after the Paris Commune about this very section. Let's find out. Forwards. Okay. Trying to find the specific section where they talk about this. Yes. However much that state of things may have altered during the last 5 years, here and there some detail might be improved. Here, let me just drop this in chat. You can follow along. Oh, we know what he said at Occupy. I mean, the speech that he presents is this rousing speech that a bunch of people listen raptly to in his little fucking fucked up little cartoon. Yeah, that speech is actually on his YouTube channel. And it is pathetic. Because you can actually, the camera's whipping around so you can see that everybody's just checking their phones. He wasn't talking in front of an audience. Okay. The practical applications of the principles will depend, as the manifesto itself states, everywhere and at all times on the historical conditions for the time being existing, and for that reason, no special stress is laid on the revolutionary measures proposed at the end of Section 2. That's what he's quoting here. That passage would, in many respects, be very differently worded today. Today being 1872, if you're wondering if maybe this is some new shit Marx came out with and Caleb just hasn't read the latest Marx. In view of the gigantic strides of modern industry since 1848, and of the accompanying improved and extended organization of the working class, in view of the practical experience gained first in the February Revolution and then still more in the Paris Commune, where the proletariat for the first time held political power for 2 whole months, this program has in some details been antiquated. This is in 1872. In view of, let's see, antiquated. One thing especially was proved by the Commune Vitalicet that, quote, the working class cannot simply lay hold of the ready-made state machinery and wield it for its own purposes, end quote. He provides a citation here for a speech that he gave to the First International General Council. Further, it is self-evident that the criticism of socialist literature is deficient in relation to the present time because it only comes down only to 1847. Also, that the remarks on the relation of the communists to the various opposition parties, although in principle still correct, yet in practice are antiquated because the political situation has been entirely changed, and the progress of history has swept off the earth the greater portion of the political parties there enumerated. Yeah. So, yeah, this is that's Marx and Engels talking about the quote that he whips out.
I also wonder what Marx meant when he said state. No, you have to be retarded to think Lenin would want, that Marx wanted the state to control the means of production.
Which, I mean, the wild things, Thought Slime didn't even fucking say that. Like, he's been going on about this fucking clip, which he didn't even allow him to finish the sentence in. But he never says any of this.
He wanted a centrally planned economy. That's just something that Lenin made up. Oh boy.
He didn't say that.
Lenin made up called democratic centralism. Those are Marx's words in the Communist Manifesto.
Now, turn to...
But I continue.
Yes, unfortunately you do. You do go on a bit, Caleb.
Continue.
Constantly.
Here is Engels in Socialism, Utopian, Scientific.
The only other Marx-Engels text
say,
that he will ever...
The solution to the contradictions. The proletariat seizes the public power, and by means of this transforms the socialized means of production, slipping from the hands of the...
Okay, now I'm just curious. When was that written? Socialism, Utopian, and Scientific was written... Yeah, okay, let's see, between January and March of 1880. So, after... Well, it was primarily attracted... Okay. So this is after already the foreword... the foreword that Marx published to the Communist Manifesto saying, yeah, the stuff that the angry Ohio dickhead with the bad goatee is talking about, yeah, disregard that. We things have changed.
The bourgeoisie into public property. By this act, the proletariat frees the means of production from the character of capital they have thus far borne and gives the socialized character complete freedom to work itself out. Socialized production upon a predetermined plan becomes henceforth possible.
Okay, and where exactly did Thought Slime say anything against, like, economic planning? In proportion as anarchy, misused, but we'll leave that alone, in social production vanishes, the political authority of the state dies out. Man, at last the master of his own form of social organization, becomes at the same time the lord over nature, his own master, free. I wonder if he's gonna, like, read the whole thing.
Socialized production upon a predetermined plan. Now, does that mean we just have a bunch of little individual worker pencil factories and everyone just does whatever they want because there's no bosses?
Yeah, like, again, you promised us that we would hear that this is what, this is one of the things you promised us from the clip. Are you just gonna pretend that the clip said the things you wanted it to say? Like... You presumably watched this fucking clip before you went on camera here. Presumably, you already knew that this clip was not going to bear out the things that you're talking about. Why not just not show the clip?
No, socialized production upon a predetermined plan means you have a planned economy.
Which he didn't say. I mean, first of all, a planned economy does not necessarily mean there's any state involved. A plan, there are all sorts of different kinds of plans. There's a lot of economic planning goes on right now. The difference is that planning is going on by capitalists and people who work for capitalists in order to maximize the profits of capitalists. That's also planning. The point is that so there are lots of different sorts of planning. Not all of it involves the fucking state. And there was nothing that Thought Slime said that actually denied that there's planning. I'm pretty sure Thought Slime, I can't remember a specific quote at this point, but I'm pretty sure he's at the very least not hostile to the idea of there being planning.
Means of production become the public property. But I continue. Again, Engels.
Even he's sick of himself. Listen to that groan.
Socialism, utopian, scientific.
Okay, did he skip? Oh, yeah, he's gonna skip over the bit where the socialization of production makes the state, unnecessary and stuff.
While the capitalist mode of production more and more completely transforms the great majority of the population into proletarians, it creates power which, under the penalty of its own destruction, is forced to accomplish this revolution. While it forces on more and more the transformation of the vast means of production already...
Note that he's talking about the capitalist mode of production here. He's literally talking about capitalist production. This is not his proposed, revolutionary measures or something like that. He's saying this is what capitalism is doing right now.
Socialized into state property.
Read the fuck... You just read it. He's talking about capitalism. He's literally the capitalist mode of production. Whilst it forces on more and more the transformation of the vast means of production already socialized into state property, it being the capitalist mode of production. You just fucking read it, my dude. You're gonna lie to people about something that's right in front of them? How desperate are you for rubes?
It shows itself at the way to accomplishing the revolution. The proletariat seizes political power and turns the means of production into state property. Oh, you must be retarded. You must be an idiot if you think that Marx wanted the state to control the means of production. He just wanted...
This is just wild. This is supposedly a response to Thought Slime. We've had 30 seconds of Thought Slime cutting him off in the middle of a fucking sentence, and then it's just putting words in his mouth 30 to 35 feral straw men.
Everyone to open a pencil factory in their backyard. Oh, I must be smart. I have a big platform on social media. This guy is such a lying sack of shit.
You're gonna accuse him of lying now because he didn't say any of that. You have the clip open, so presumably, if he said that stuff, you could actually show it to people. Yeah, you didn't, because he didn't say any of that. Literally the one thing you can say about that clip is that he got the definition of democratic centralism wrong, which he did. He got it wrong. It wasn't actually a key point. And I'm pretty sure you're not the first motherfucker to... that video is, over a year old. I'm pretty sure you're not the first person to discover that he got the definition of democratic centralism wrong in it. You're gonna call him a lying sack of shit. He didn't say the things that you're just making it up, and you showed your audience. You showed your fucking audience that he didn't say the things that you're attributing to him.
He's trying
Hello,
to get me...
Hey, Sunjata, how you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, we're talking and we're looking at everybody's favorite Marxist philosopher here. We got Caleb Muppet.
He killed, right? And he's basically put a hit out on me to try and get me...
Yeah, remember he said that the clip, the 30-second clip that he showed where he cut Thought Slime off in the middle of the sentence was going to prove all of the accusations that he's made, one of which is this thing about supposedly putting a hit out on him.
Assassinated. And he's, spreading the claim that I'm a white supremacist and a neo-Nazi, which
Again, he's never used either of those words. He said Nazbol, because you're a fucking Nazbol.
am not.
You certainly hang out with neo-Nazis and white supremacists often enough. And really the whole project of patriotic American socialism is, if not mayonnaise proper, it is certainly salad cream. I mean, you could make a potato salad with it, I'm pretty sure. But he's never actually said you're either of those fucking things. But you're certainly very comfortable in the company of people who very clearly are.
And on top of that, he's trying to convince you that Marx never advocated the state controlling the means of production.
He literally never said that.
But it's worse. It's worse than that. And I'm going to emphasize an aspect of these clips I just showed you.
There was only one clip that he showed us. And so far, virtually, apart from pointing out correctly that he got the definition of democratic centralism wrong, I mean, he's just been making shit up ever since.
That shows you how much worse he is. Now, that first clip I showed you,
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's at the very least he hangs out with enough white supremacists that, and the white supremacists he hangs out with are never worse off for it. So, I mean, I think there's probably a pretty good case to be made just based on that. Yeah, literally in the very clip that he's using that is supposedly the proof that nobody should be listening to Thought Slime, who for reasons nobody fucking knows, he calls Skippy the Bear. He doesn't even say anything about Marx. He literally doesn't say any of this. I mean, and meanwhile, the only thing he keeps on trotting out is a passage from, one of the quotes was Engels talking about the capitalist mode of production very specifically. And then the other one was section 2 of the manifesto, which Marx and Engels had actually walked back because they decided subsequent... Yeah, literally. Although...
First quote from the Communist Manifesto. What does it say? Does the
this fucking the same quote again. The same quote. This is the quote they didn't even in 1872 already. Marx and Engels said, "Yeah, we didn't quite get that one right." And this motherfucker, it is literally one of 2 Marx quotes that he knows.
The proletariat will
all these fucking books, and he's never read any of them.
Use its political supremacy to
did
wrest
this already.
by degree
Yeah,
all
see
capital from the bourgeoisie, to centralize the instruments of production in the hands of the state, and to increase the total productive forces as rapidly as possible. Meaning, make everyone wealthier. Raise the level of abundance in society.
Here we go again with communism is when line go up.
We don't want everyone to be poor. We don't want to stop economic growth.
Chat, I'm just wondering, would you say there have been changes in the economy between, say, 1848 and now? Is it possible that things work a little bit differently now than in 1840? I mean, never mind that in 1872, Marx and Engels were already saying, yeah, there's been so much development in the means of production and the mode of production and, the organization of the working class that we've had to reconsider Section 2 of the Manifesto, from which this quote is derived. But I mean, in 2023, I feel like maybe things are a little bit different in some ways in terms of the way we produce things. Yeah, exactly. I thought so too. That's right. Good point. He did, that they do very explicitly say, when they're talking about the state is the proletariat as ruling class. Yeah, good catch. I missed that too.
It's the opposite. We want to overcome the irrationality of the capitalist system. We want to overcome the problems of the capitalist system that cause poverty to be created by abundance and cause frequent gluts on the market, the problem of overproduction, which...
which he's never managed to show any comprehension of. Like, when people point out that there is such a thing as objective overproduction, where there's simply more stuff out being produced than anyone has any use for. I mean, a wonderful example of this is just, really, Apple exists in order to make this argument easy. Because literally all they're doing is finding new ways to make more overproduction. Because every time they find a new way to, like, replace a standardized connector with some proprietary bullshit that breaks in 5 minutes, every time they, like, solder the SSD onto their fucking motherboards, so now, instead of just replacing an SSD if your SSD fails, oh, and they put the BIOS on the fucking thing, so you can't even boot up. They put the BIOS on this SSD that is soldered to your motherboard. So now, instead of replacing the SSD, which is like, like $100 maybe, last I checked, now you've got to replace the entire board, $600. $600, that is a ridiculous amount of money to spend to repair something that is not going to boot anyway, and is not going to have your data on it. So obviously you're going to just buy a new machine entirely and spend probably twice as much. Or maybe 3 times as much. Like, objective overproduction is such an easy case to make, thanks to Apple. Like, seriously. But anytime but he doesn't comprehend any of this shit. Yeah. And, like, let me see, and what year did he write the forewords? Is this motherfucker even read the forewords? Like, I know people skip over the forewords, and a lot of the time you don't really miss anything. Except on the Cullen's Eye translation. Read that forward. There's going to be a translator's forward, and it's important. Because this is one of the hardest translations I've ever done, and I have thoughts that are important in understanding how to read it. Based on that. But, like, there are, 10 different forewords to the Communist Manifesto. And every single one of them is them updating some point that was made in it. Yeah, Caleb doesn't understand any of this, is my guess. But he does the white guy in the student pub trick, and that Vosh also does, of using an authoritative tone, and just talking like this, and just out-talking people, and he's gonna sound like your fucking junior high school vice president, folks. Isn't it true that 1848, really, the mode of production is basically the same as right now, isn't it, folks? And you'd have to be a CIA agent to say things are different, folks. And you just do this for long enough, and everybody who knows anything about this will disappear, which he wants. He wants the people who know anything about this on their own to disappear so that he has, easy pickings for his fucking cult.
Which, no, doesn't mean, there's just too much stuff. It means that...
it also means there's too much stuff. There's 2 kinds of overproduction. The one where there's, literally more stuff than people have any use for. Yeah, that where we would still have a glut, even if everything was free, is a much more recent problem. It wasn't as much of a problem when Marx was writing, because the problem then was, for the most part, getting production up to scratch on a lot of things. But these days, we've got, we're producing more of things than anyone actually needs. If you, made housing free in the US right now, we'd still have empty units. We'd have lots of empty units, in fact. If you made all food free in the world, there would still be a huge amount that would just rot.
The more wealth that's created, the poorer people get. Unemployment caused by too much production, homelessness caused by too many houses, hunger caused by too much food. We want to eliminate that so that the productivity of human labor is exponentially unleashed.
He doesn't know what productivity means. He, literally doesn't know what productivity means.
That's what it means. We want to raise the level of productive forces, not degrowth, but maximization of growth. And Engels makes this even more abundantly clear.
Has anyone written about, any Marxist written about, the development of the productive forces since 1848? I feel like maybe there's, entire libraries of Marxists writing about this.
Engels, in the quote I showed you before, He's explaining what socialism is. He says the socialized production upon a predetermined plan.
Oh yeah, I mean, is he going to talk about the state dying out yet? The development of production makes the existence of different classes of society thenceforth an anachronism. In proportion as the anarchy, misusing the term, in social production vanishes, the political authority of the state dies out. Man, at last the master of his own form of social organization, etc. We already looked at this. Yeah, it's funny, he's got this quote up a second time about where he points out that the idea is that when you actually change the mode of production and get rid of the capitalist mode of production, the state's not going to be long for this earth. And he's managed to avoid mentioning it once. Let's see if he manages to avoid mentioning it again.
Henceforth possible. The development of...
Oh, yeah, well, yes, he experienced human labor. He worked at a sandwich shop for one summer when he was at uni.
Production makes the existence of classes of society thenceforth an anachronism. In proportion as anarchy and social production vanishes, the political authority of the state dies out.
Yeah, so it sounds like they're saying the state actually isn't very long for this earth when this revolution starts. It doesn't sound like they want the state to be a permanent fixture, does it?
Meaning that as wealth is rationally planned and organized, and as we're producing so much wealth, the need for a state starts to fade away because so much wealth is being produced. Man, at last, the master of his own form of social organization.
Yeah. So, okay, this is just, what gets me is he was right, actually, given the bullshit case he's trying to make here. I mean, and remember, this is attacking Thoughtslime for shit he didn't say. That's why we're even looking at this. All Thoughtslime was doing was attempting a very quick and sort of superficial, uncontroversial definition of socialism as seen by various tendencies that call themselves socialists. In order to point out that PragerU is full of shit when they talk about socialism. Like... that was literally what he's responding to, and we've just gone so far beyond this. And yet the title of this video is, Why Does Anyone Listen to Skippy the Bear? Yeah, I mean... it's like, there's so much, just by Marx and Engels talking about how they basically do not consider the state to be a lasting feature of society once the revolution gets going, and he's sitting here trying to quote them as proof that the state is obviously a permanent feature, along with billionaires, which he said is un-Marxist to think there shouldn't be billionaires, because he thinks that like communism means we all have as much shit as billionaires have. Because he hasn't even really given any thought to what billionaires' money actually goes to. Like, how much of that actually goes to, like, things that people are, like, daily, what you could call, like, daily comforts of daily life and necessities of daily life. Like, most of that shit has nothing to do with, like, eating well and having a decent place to live and, having, and shit like that. And it has a lot more to do with owning shit other people need. But he hasn't given, like, any thought to any of this, and aside from that, if he said that billionaires shouldn't exist, because obviously in a classless, stateless, moneyless society, you wouldn't have billionaires, the communism, you can't have communism and billionaires at the same time unless you just totally redefine communism. And he wants to totally redefine communism. Because he thinks fascism is communism.
Lord over...
Yeah, I mean, it is... I mean, and one thing that has just been very educational about this video, this is, like, the boldest I've seen him in terms of his gaslighting. Like, usually he will just sit there and harangue people for, like, 3 hours in at his desk, looking like you've been summoned to the principal's office or some shit. But this time he actually decided to provide a quote, provide a clip that he was going to respond to, and then he showed the clip twice, and then he immediately lied about it. immediately lied about it, and he's been lying about the whole thing ever since. But it is time for me to start wrapping up, and let me just drop the Discord link in here. This is where you can get in touch with me in between streams, and where you can, like, if you have suggestions, videos you'd like to see me respond to, and things like that, I would love to hear from you. Anything like that, I'm going to drop that in chat. I will be back. Yeah, oh yeah, Caleb has never recovered from the fact that that Thought Slime just thinks he's basically thinks he's a meme. He just makes fun of him. And points out just how fucking ridiculous the man is, in addition to just being a pernicious, creepy, cult-leading bastard. But, yeah, so it is time for me to wrap up. I think we may be continuing on with this tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. Good to see all of you. Nice to see you again, Black Anarchic Reacts. I've missed your streams, and I hope things are getting better for you. And Adria and Mask and everybody, and I will see you tomorrow, I suppose. Have a good evening.